Yes, waiting for the transition out of my beloved lo-fis. And I'm back. I'm back after the national holidays took me away, but they didn't took me away from the wonderful world of comic books. Been rewatching some of the movies, of course, staying up to date with all the releases, everything. I I think I said this every week, but it's exciting. Every week is exciting. Now, uh, now there are some news. I mean, I don't know if anybody outside of comic books care for this news, but there is news. Apparently, there's a big rumor of Bendis, Brian Michael Bendis, creator of Miles Morales and Jessica Jones, coming back to Marvel after he went to DC and then he went independent. I just read the new Powers 25, right? Like his biggest sort of creator owned series about the detectives that police superheroes and whatnot. I didn't read the original Powers, and they said that Powers 25 was a great starting point for going into it, so I just read it. And I've always thought that Bendis is a little bit wordy. I know I'm a big bold nobody to be talking about how comic book writers should do their job, but like I always found him a little bit too wordy. But I do love Miles Morales and Jessica Jones. Since he wrote Alias and like how long was that? Like 10 years ago. It's been a shit ton of time since he wrote Jessica Jones. There has been several good writers that have done great stuff with the character. But I guess if he comes back, there are rumors that he would write a new Ultimate Universe since Jonathan Hickman's current run on the Ultimate Universe or current project on the Ultimate Universe is coming to an end soon. There are rumors that they're gonna put him in charge again. I don't know. I don't know. It's all rumors, and as I said, it's not like him coming back is gonna immediately create good stuff. But nah, you get the news you can when you can. Am I right? That's how it goes. But as we are every week, we are here for the new releases, right? There's a bunch of stuff. As I said, there are some pick me ups, like updates from previous recommendations on new stuff. So let's dive right into it. Last time I did talk about Batman. This is a half recommendation, half uh, pick me up. I should rename pick me up. They should just call it update, right? Just an update. So since the last episode, Fraction and Jimenez's Batman already came out, right? Like broke all records. I think it's in its sixth or seventh printing or something. It's crazy. So a quick like kind of like review on Batman number one, the new Batman. Uh, it's just number one. So what I liked about it is that it's not there's no not comedy. It's not comedy, but it has this weird sort of like it's not tension, but it's like a reserved sort of tension that sort of smells like comedy to me. I don't know, like the whole new. I don't want to spoil anything, right? But it's just number one, so it's just a setup. It's just a setup, and it was kind of lighthearted in a way. But anyway, I don't want to spoil anything, but it was just an interesting number one. It did feel new. And speaking of new Batman, so the new story arc in Detective Comics begins now. And it has Batman traveling the world once again, right? Searching for the cure to a world without fear. It sounds interesting, but what I want to comment about it in particular is that it does feel like, remember I said that Batman was kind of like spread out. I think they are sticking with it. I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I think that it should come together at some point, right? I mean, what can I say about Batman number one is that it's character based, right? Like, and I'm not gonna spoil it, but let's say something happens with Robin that requires Batman's attention, and for Detective Comics, so he seems to go away into another big adventure. I don't know. I think I'm still waiting for that big Batman shakeup. What I can say about Batman number one, though, is that we had Alfred coming back in a special way. Again, I'm not gonna spoil it, but Alfred is back in some regards, right? And this new Detective Comics story arc, eh, I think, I think, I mean, I'm always thought about it, like in some sense. I always thought that Detective Comics is like the okay, Batman is going to do something crazy in Detective Comics while something important happens in the main Batman book. Who knows, right? But what I want to create with this is sort of like a comment where you can have these two Batmans. I don't want to add they had the new Higgins Batman, the one where he's like a Power Ranger. Like I think this is a good time to pick just these two Batman books and stick with them, and have this be your Batman. That is the chance. Two self-contained stories, not necessarily like put together, but you can have these two Batmans and make them your weekly Batman input, and you will be okay. And if you want to go a little bit more hardcore, you can go really hardcore with Absolute Batman. That shit is going crazy. Absolute Batman is just bonkers. Like I think it's going beyond any sort of like Elseworld or whatever you would have about Batman before. Like it's just going hardcore as shit. And I don't want to spoil anything about Absolute Batman, but let's just say that the idea, the bare minimum idea that all the rogues gallery of Batman enemies were his friends, that was a piece of genius. That to me was a piece of genius. Make them all his, like all of them, his friends. Like if you ever loved whatever dynamic Bruce Wayne or Batman had with Two Face, imagine that dynamic with all of them. That was a piece of genius. That was a piece of genius. So, Detective Comics and Batman number one, make that your main Batman sort of input or like intake. And if you want to go hardcore, go Absolute Batman. That shit is crazy. Next. So I talked about this is another like why do I keep going back to Pick Me Up as a concept? This is just like an update. So I was looking forward to the Mortal Thor, right? We are this week number 2 comes out, and I loved Mortal Thor number 1, and for one big main reason, it's oddly violent. I don't know. It just is. It is oddly freaking violent. So Thor is like lost his memories, like he doesn't really know he's Thor, and there's another person claiming to be Thor. And I love how our Thor, even though he doesn't know he's Thor, he just falls back into like a world of like Nordic violence that is so strange to see it coming from the mortal Thor, right? I thought that juxtaposition was so funny and so brilliant. Like, okay, I'm a regular guy, but I'm a Viking, so I'm sort of violent, and it is super. I don't know, strange, funny. Like it has everything. Of course, it has the big mystery behind it also, right? Like you gotta have that big mystery of how it's all going to come to be. Like, of course, I don't want to spoil it too much, but let's say Loki also makes an appearance in a different way. I just hope, like, I hope doesn't it all doesn't end in just being another delusion from Loki and whatever. Like, I really hope this turns out to be something. But as of now, it's been super fun. It's been super fun. As I said, that violence that sort of comes out of Thor, and people be like, "Oh man, this guy is so violent. What's wrong with him? He's Thor." Like if you do the same thing being Thor, nobody would bat an eye on it, right? Everybody would be like, "It's just Thor." So it's been really fun. The Mortal Thor #2, really interesting. Gotta keep on with it. Next. So now into the other side, right? I've never been like a big Robert Kirkman fan, right? But since I went back to, I mean, I started reading Image like a little bit. Like I mean, I've been since the beginning with Spawn, right? But I didn't actively went back to Image for like several years, so I missed all the Walking Dead. I missed it. But since then, I really enjoyed it when they released the deluxe Walking Dead Deluxe, which is the colored version of the Walking Dead. I really enjoyed, of course, the Boyd Rivals and what he's doing with the Energon universe. So I don't know. Robert Kirkman is a guy that somehow cannot do wrong, but this new book, Skinbreaker, I liked it because of the characters. So David Finch has this. There are like orcs. They are like fighting orcs or something. I don't know. It's a new title, and I chose not to read too much into it. But like, it seems to be just classic comic book adventure, right? There's one orc-oriented book by Willow Wilson, right? G. Willow Wilson, that I love. I keep forgetting the name of the book, but it's a love story between orcs and humans, which is kind of cool. So I've been into this orc kind of like hype. So if they say Robert Kirkman is coming with an adventure book based on like having like orcs, or like, I don't even know how they're gonna call them. They're not gonna be orcs, right? They're gonna be like goblins. I don't know. It looks cool, and every once in a while, I think any, I don't know, child of the 90s that loved adventure and fantasy needs like just a straight up adventure book, right? Like if you had this same book written by, I don't know, like Hickman or like something like that, you know, it'd be like more worthy, and I'm not trash talking, but it will be more convoluted, right? You can always trust Kirkman for a nice adventure with a little touch of je ne sais quoi, right? Looks interesting, and as I said, you put the name of Robert Kirkman on the Image, or like on his editorial Skybound, and it's bound to be good. I hope so. Let's go next. So this is another update. I talked about Spider-Man and Wolverine a couple of like weeks ago, I think by now. And I said that I was looking forward to them playing with the lore, or like the canonical events of either of the characters, since the main sort of idea behind the book was that Wolverine was the character behind Peter Parker's parents' deaths, right? So since then, we've had the, what is that word when astray? Well, for those of you who don't know, they introduced Peter Parker's sister not so long ago, some time ago. So she's back, and she's now introduced herself into the story, because of course, if Wolverine killed Peter Parker's parents, yeah, there were her parents too. And Peter Parker's sister, I think her name is Teresa, I think. She's a secret agent, so she's had connections, blah blah blah. So the plot has only gotten even more convoluted, and in #5 they are like introducing the main enemy of the book, Dread Shadow. What is the stupid fucking name, right? It's just so stupid name, but it's a comic book name. So the book has only gotten more complicated, like just add more stuff to it, but it's been oddly fun. As I said when I talked about it at the like I don't know how long ago. The art is great, the action is amazing, and since they brought Peter Parker's sister into the mix, I just can assume that the plot is gonna deliver in what I expected it to be. Some sort of not a status quo change, but like a big event that is gonna be referenced from now on. You know when they do that little asterisk on the side of any part of the comic, and they put a scene in. So after this, next time Wolverine and Spider-Man interact, they're gonna have that a little asterisk that's gonna say a scene in Spider-Man and Wolverine number whatever when this ends, right? So this is just an update to say keep on with Spider-Man and Wolverine, because the possibility of it being important hasn't left the building, and it has been a shit ton of fun. Next. So I never talked about the Storm solo book. Um, it felt weird since the beginning. After what happened with the fall of Krakoa and everything, um, it seems that everybody went their own way. And when they introduced Storm not only to the Avengers, but like they also introduced her solo series. Her solo series basically tapped strongly into the concept of her being a goddess, which is all good and fine, right? Like Storm is one of the most important characters. So she has her own, not school, but like her own headquarters, like where she's sort of like an influence in American politics and society, which is kind of strange. But the main thing about the book has been her interaction with other thunder or storm related deities. Right? So in this conclusion, Storm number 12, as the cover clearly states, the Thunder War concludes. So basically, we are going to see again. I'm a sucker for these sort of potential status quo changes, right? And I hope we see one in Storm here, because basically that is not something that we have seen strongly in her participation in Avengers, right? Like it's not a time and a place for that. But how much stronger can Storm get? If she's not ulting with Jeff the Land Shark, I don't know how much stronger can she actually get. But it has been interesting. Like I always love when, especially with Storm, where they go like challenge her prowess. That's a hard word to pronounce. Prowess, like on with a W, like power, prowess. They always challenged that, and of course she always stood up to the challenge. And now she's been quite into the, it's not holy, but like the godly side of it. I don't think this is gonna change much, but it also has been fun. As I said, to me, that basic Storm dynamic of like, oh, Storm, you suck, and Storm is standing up to it, it's just awesome. I love it. And they keep changing her looks, which is something that I always felt that they do that with Storm, like almost with like Storm and Emma Frost must be the two X-Men that, or X people, whatever you want to call them, that they just keep changing them how they look, and it's always fun to see a new look for them. So it's never too late to come back to the current Storm solo series. The first numbers, the first issues has been kind of like a mixed bag. You can never be too powerful, you can say. So the story concludes, and I guess it's a nice a nice bow to tie it all together. And whoever wants to check out what Storm is doing, these 12 numbers are your go-to. It's pretty fun, and it's Storm. So, what is her line? What is her line? Beware of the gods. I play Rivals all the time, and I keep forgetting the lines. Whatever, fuck it. Next. So we're talking about the summer of Superman, and now it has finally getting really, really interesting. Dance lots run with soups. It has been like identified by this. The main concept, right, is that now there's kryptonite everywhere. When they introduced that concept, I didn't really like understood the the weight of it, the heaviness of it. You can say it somehow. I really did not understood it completely, right? Until now, like the past numbers in the main Superman book have I mean Superman Unlimited basically. They have created this ambiance, this setting, this context where Superman feels so vulnerable like never before. Like it's sort of like a sort of like an unwritten rule, right? Like okay, like if you have a kryptonite bullet, you shoot the guy and like he's dead, right? Like we all know that. We all know that you shoot the guy and like he's dead, whatever, right? But it wasn't until the past numbers or the past issues of the book that they have like smartly and like in a perfect way written a world where Superman is vulnerable. It has been quite a delight to see it like that, because if you wanna challenge the status quo of a character, what better way of creating or like making that the whole world is against him in a way? People don't wanna hurt him, but like kryptonite is everywhere. So in one of the recent numbers, he gets I thought he was, what was he doing? Like rescuing someone, and someone had like a kryptonite jewelry because it looked cool or something. It's it's crazy. You gotta be subtle with this, right? Subtle. You gotta be subtle. Yeah, you don't wanna turn Superman into like a weakling, but you wanna create this context in your story where he actually is and it feels like it, and they have achieved that, and it's awesome. It's really entertaining, and it's Superman, so it's gonna challenge his core values, like 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 deeply. It's gonna be a deep challenge for Superman, living a world where he's vulnerable, but he still not only is Superman, but he wants to be Superman, right? He wants to keep being Superman. It's great. Superman Unlimited this week, which is number what, 5? I keep forgetting, but whatever. Like, jump into it. If you like Superman, go for it. Next. So back to the like close to die, super close to die Ultimate Universe, the current Ultimate Universe. Um, I remember reading the press release about Ultimate Hawkeye and saying like this is the breakout character. And thinking back to it, they might be the most interesting character out of them all. Like when they start bringing all of the heroes back, they were all a little bit changed. Of course, this is another universe. They are all a little bit changed, but they all sort of like they remain sort of like the same in a way, right? So, but Hawkeye is completely different. Like completely different. Like for starters, they can't even like shoot well without technology, which is something that is completely anathema. I love that word, and I love that band. To the character itself, it's so funny, but they have an attitude and a presence unlike any of the other Ultimate characters brought back. Even the award-winning Ultimate Spider-Man is just like a refreshed Spider-Man, right? Ultimate Hawkeye is a completely different Hawkeye. They tap into their sort of like representation in a really interesting way, their aggressiveness, their skills, and like the X factor that they are among the Ultimates. So I'm really looking forward to their probably gonna be short-lived solo book, right? Since the Ultimate Universe, the current one, is ending by the end of the year. It's probably gonna be short, but they're gonna tap like strongly and deeply into their aggressiveness, the reason for their aggressiveness that is completely related to their identity, right? And ultimately, it's gonna be just good old fun, I think. as all of these books are, right? I hope to see some comment on representation, and like I hope they let them go wild with the aggressiveness of the characters that we have seen so far. So this is the one that I'm really looking forward to. Ultimate Hawkeye #1. Like they are going for the Maker. I almost forgot that the Maker is around there. He's gonna be there, of course, for the end, right? For the Ultimate Endgame. Of course, he's gonna be there, but like, whatever. I think this might be our reintroduction to the Maker because we haven't seen much of him in the current run of the Ultimate Universe. So Ultimate Hawkeye, pretty good hype one. Next, this is another sort of like update. I talked about Robert Kirkman, and I talk about the Energon universe. Since they are like the current run of Transformers ended, who is picking that up? Kirkman, right? Kirkman is picking that up. Kirkman is picking Transformers up, and Transformers is ending. Well, GI Joe is doing their own thing. The center of it all, remains Void Rivals. I think it was strange to make it like that. Like, basically, the core elements of this conjoined Energon universe, Energon, Energon is like Enter John, like Enter John universe. The core of that is in Void Rivals. So anyone that has been really deep into the current Enter John universe has gotta come back to Void Rivals. Void Rivals, I said before that it's in kind of like a climax situation type. Like, but what we have seen now is the introduction of so many elements that are necessarily gonna come back to the other titles. Like the snake people from G.I. Joe are here, right? The Quintesson elements and all of those Transformers elements are there. Like, everything is here. So I needed to update on Void Rivals because now they're bringing more Transformers into the mix. Like, besides the current characters. So everything is here. Everything is here in Void Rivals. G.I. Joe has been slow going. They have really put a lot of focus on building characters in G.I. Joe. So the main plot elements are here. So I need to come back to it and just go like, hey, if you wanna be in the whole Energon universe, you gotta jump into Void Rivals and do it now. I mean, if you don't want to, just don't do it. Fuck it. But Void Rivals, it's in that point. Gotta go into it. Next. Another one that I'm really, really excited for. So James Tynion, one of my current, of course, I was gonna say God, but that's a little bit of, that's too much, right? But one of my favorite writers of the past decade is closing the run on his creator-owned book Wind, without like pulling all of the stops. I think I might have recommended Wind like, I don't know, months ago, and I wasn't aware that this was going to be the closing story arc for the book, but apparently it is. So Wind, the Power of Blood, is gonna be the starting of the closing arc for this book. This fantasy book where like different factions of fantasy creatures are struggling for domination and power, right? With the bloodthirsty vampires and the poor humans and their politics, whatever. What I really liked about Wind, it's its main character, Wind. I want to say something really with like the most respect out of it, like that I can, right? So, Tynion is it's a queer creator, right? I think he's bisexual or something. I'm not sure, but he always writes. To this date, he writes the best queer characters that I read in mainstream comics. I think he does, and Wind is no exception. Something that happened with Wind is that you sort of like you read it, and I don't know, you think about like high fantasy or like I don't know Ghibli movies, like these really handcrafted sort of like fantasy worlds with like so many elements to them, right? And like so many factions, and they are all there, like a big fantasy world, right? And when you think about it, and you think, how do I add representation to these sort of creator creations, right? You tend to forget that it doesn't need to be a big deal. What do I mean by this? Like, it's not gonna be like, okay, like, oh, this character is queer, like, oh, look at him, he's the protagonist, right? What Tanyan did with Win was create this like vulnerable and humble character that, even though he's hit by every side of the board, like we have all of these factions, right? He's right in the middle, and he's a victim of it all, right? He's so innocent, so pure, that his queerness, in a way, comes out natural and pure as the character is written. He has like an adoptive sister. He has like love interests, but they're not like in your face, or like my point is that you don't need to wave a flag to be representative, or like you don't need to wave a flag to make people know that this character is full of representation and is ultimately a fun character. It's like a fun, loving character. And if you think about like stuff like, I don't know, House Moving Castle, or like so many stuff that like people do in high fantasy, especially in countries like Japan, they would never do this. This Tynion is a professor in showing you how to write representation into fantasy. He is, and this is something that you will never see in like, no, I don't know, anime or like Disney, right? You will never see characters done with this level of complexity and fun. Wind is a great character, and I cannot recommend it enough. Like, all of his characters, his friends, his journey. Kind of sad that it's gonna end, but like, I don't know. It's been a hell of a ride, and well, we'll have Tinyon for years writing something is killing the children, right? Like, I think they renewed that they renewed that for like what? What did they say? Like, how do they say? Can I find out like really quick? Like for 10 years or something? No, I'm not gonna find it quickly. But I remember that they doing like that. That's gonna be like, there's gonna be something is killing the children forever. But anyways, when you are taking a rest from something is killing the children, take a look at the Wind, studying its final arcs of good old high fantasy, romance, drama, action. It has everything, I promise. And our final recommendation of the week. Finally, in X-Men 22, it is the event that we all X-Men fans have been waiting. The dawn of the Age of Revelation begins. I have no expectations about this, like none, because supposedly this is for an alternate future, right? The Age of Revelation comes for that, right? And Doug Ramsey, formerly known as Cypher, now known as Revelation, is coming to the main. I mean, I don't want to say they're the main one, but Cyclops in there. But he's coming to the Cyclops group of the X-Men, and it's kickstarting the whole Age of Revelation. The way I see it, I haven't read much about it because I don't want to get spoiled. But what I think is gonna happen is that Cypher Revelation is gonna like jumpstart different timelines from what he's doing now, right? So he's gonna she's gonna start these alternate timelines, right? They're gonna release all of these books related to the Age of Revelation, right? Showing the possible futures, and then they're gonna come back to it. Probably they're gonna have Apocalypse come back at the end. Like I think at the end of the whole event, that's gonna be the big like payoff, like the big thing to come out of it, right? Like Apocalypse is back where, right? Because he's been non-present. The thing about the whole Age of Revelation and why, whether you want to follow the rest of the event or not, why you need to read this, because this is the point that matters for the main X-Men storyline. If they're gonna just erase all of the alternative titles, or they're just gonna say that they're like alternative timelines or whatever, this is the part of the event that they're not gonna erase. This is the part of the event that is necessarily gonna matter. And I don't know. I think to me, X-Men is like that thing that is always there. Like the whole idea of the X-Men being this kind of like representation of minorities or whatever. Like the original idea that Stan Lee said so until the day he was fucking buried into the ground. Like, oh, I needed to create representation for like America's new minorities, whatever, right? Like all of that, I think it has been so long since that. But since then, X-Men has just installed itself as a permanent thing for all of us comic book lovers. So even if the event is not that good, or even if most of its efforts are put into alternative timelines, I think it's X-Men. And X-Men, like the X-Men are awesome. Like I don't know. One day I shall do like a tier list of Marvel heroes or Marvel factions, right? Now that the Inhumans are coming back. Quick update on Imperial. The Inhumans are coming back. And not on that crappy fucking series. Man, that shit was bad. That shit was whack. But anyways, the Age of Revelation begins in X-Men number 22. And I think it's gonna be the big Marvel thing. Even more than Ultimate Endgame. Unless they announce that Bendis is back to bring you the Ultimate Universe you always wanted. Now, I just want Bendis to come back and write Jessica Jones. To be honest, the thing I like the most of Bendis's creations in Marvels is Jessica Jones, and they have been good. Like I think who wrote like a big one, like a good one lately, Marguerite Sabash, perhaps, but I think that was peak Jessica Jones. Alias was peak Jessica Jones, and it's a great character. But whatever, that's another week full of comic books. A lot of them look forward for any of them, all of them, and everything in between. And I'm back recording for the handful of people that share my excitement for it. Anyway, like, subscribe, like, read, because the Age of what was Revelation, Domination, the Nation of Domination. Oh, Revelation, because the Age of Domination, because the Age of Revelation is here. See you all next week. Thank you for listening and keep reading. Bye bye.